So we're gonna jump into part 2 of baby mother apologies. And I know it's an interesting title that I said baby mother apologies. Why would we be the ones to apologize when the baby fathers are the one who walk out? They're the ones who changed their mind. They're the ones who turned away. They're the ones who stepped away from what it is that they either promised or said. In my case, it was a one-night fling, honestly. And so I wasn't that upset that he didn't want to be around. It sucked. And I did want him a part of life. But at the same time, I'm like, we weren't in a committed relationship where he owed me anything. He owed himself the respect to be a father, but if he didn't want to do that, there was nothing I can do. His father also ran out on him, and so I understood that there was a generational trauma thing happening. And when that happens, the person either has a choice of stepping up and doing what their father couldn't, or becoming just like them, and he chose the latter. But when I talk about the grieving process of losing somebody who you wanted to be there, I look at it from this perspective. Along the way, I was hurt, I was angry, and I wasn't so much hurt that he didn't want to be a part. Like, yeah, that was one of it, but it was that he was slandering my name. It was that he was out there telling everybody I was this hoe, I was this nobody. And he made him seem like he was a safe space for me. He was out there telling people he didn't even touch me. He was out there telling people I was this like dirty dick sucker. Like, he was out there saying the worst about me. And all I kept saying was, hey, I understand why you're mad. I understand why it might be hard to believe. I understand that I came to you at the 8-month mark. I didn't tell you from the beginning so that we could have gone through this process together. I understand that I robbed you of all that. I take responsibility that, okay, my dad didn't handle it the right way. But hey, let's do a DNA test and I'll pay for it. I will cover the cost of it. I thought that was a responsible thing for me to do. And I'm age 17. He was age, I think, 20 by that time. And I'm like trying to think for the both of us. Because I was willing to accept what I didn't do. Willing to accept the parts where I could have did and I went wrong. I accepted that. He was angry that I didn't tell him from the get-go. And I was like, but I did tell you my period was late. I just didn't bring it back up to you. And he never followed up, right? And so now we're in a situation where I completely understand his point of view. He's like, look at it from my side. I do. Like, I get it. And I was like, but staying in the position of looking at it from your side isn't going to get us anywhere. We need to move on. We need to move forward. And that would be through the DNA test. And so during this process, I had to do a lot of things I just did not want to do. I was not comfortable with. But he made it very challenging on me to be the mother that I need to be, or to even focus on our child. Like, that's the thing. Because of his selfishness, I had to spend so much time fighting him, arguing with him, going back and forth with him, that I didn't have. It took away time for me raising our child. Not to mention, my son was diagnosed with Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, and that was an additional level. So now I had a child with disability who I'm trying to raise, and his father was just being a complete dick about the whole thing. So I'm there fighting him back and forth, and it got to a point, honestly, where, because I had written on his Facebook wall, and like, this is the thing, when you go through like hurt, when you go through grief, sometimes you go through a phase where you just want to be childish and mad, and you just want to get revenge. Like, you're so angry at certain things. And so I would I was like, I would tell him, I'm like, sir, I'm not even one of these crazy baby moms out here popping up at certain places, writing on, doing certain things. But at one point I did write on his wall, I think, something about his kid. Because I'm like, you're not going to pretend like I don't exist. Like, you going to see me, right? And I would send him messages and all this stuff. And one time his girlfriend saw one of the Facebook messages, and he cussed me out for it. But I'm like, sir, it's not my fault that your girlfriend has the password to your messages. That has nothing to do with me. And he said because of that, I messed up his life. Not him not taking responsibility, but cool. I had gotten to a point where I could not do it anymore. I could not fight anymore. I could not be angry anymore. I could not argue anymore. And I started looking at what it meant to forgive him, to see the situation, not just from his side, but from the side of somebody who was scared, from the side of somebody who was running away, from the side of somebody who was not adult enough, mature enough, responsible enough to step up, and that had to be me, and it sucked that all that weight was on me, but I didn't take it out on my child. My child knew exactly who his father was. I never called his daddy any names around him. I didn't call him whatless. I didn't call him nothing. I said, that's your father. He's not around, but just so you know, this is who your daddy is. And I would show him pictures, and I'd say, hey, do you know who this is? Like, I'd play, like, guessing games. He's like, and he would always call him by his first name. And I'd be like, yes, but that's also your dad. Because it came to a point where, like I said, I had to release the anger. I could not hold on to it. It was destroying me. It was keeping me up at night. It had me obsessed over his Facebook and wanting to know why I wasn't good enough, wanting to know why all the other girls that he was going after, why did they get to be the one? When he told me that night that he was my man, and that same night, it was done. I later found out from his sister, his younger sister, that I believe she said he's pretty shallow. And I understood that to mean that I was one of the bigger girls he was with, and he was embarrassed to bring me around. And that also hurt, because then I had to acknowledge the fact that part of the reason my son didn't have a father was because I wasn't worth showing off. Now, that's incorrect, but that's an incorrect thought of what I'm saying. But that's what I was thinking at the time, that I wasn't cute enough or I wasn't beautiful enough for him to want to bring me around his family to show me off. And so he wasn't proud that he made a kid with me. I was somebody who he wanted to hide. I was somebody who he wished would just go away, who he wished he never met. And unfortunately, because of this child that we shared, that was never going to happen. But until he realized it, until he came to a point of understanding, until he came to a point of stepping up, there was nothing I can do. And because there's nothing I can do, I'm like, I'm not going to fight him in this way. And so I stopped fighting. I did get a legal aid lawyer, because at that time that I had started the forgiveness process, it wasn't about getting him to see me. It wasn't about being right or wrong. It was just about what was best for my child. And what was best for my child was putting him on child support so that eventually I could get some help for my child. And also so that if I needed to leave the country or do any of that, I didn't have to, I didn't need permission from his father. Because honestly, in the eyes of the government, two people made this child. We don't, like, it, the way God designed pregnancies and all this to happen, a girl can't climb on top of herself and get herself pregnant. You know what I'm saying? Like, there has to have been two people. But in his world, it didn't matter, and that was okay. And so how did I go through this? Because it's not about what happened, but how did I go through this process? Well, I started telling myself, it's okay. I forgive him. I forgive him. I started talking positive about him. I started talking good about him in front of my child. I never did talk bad about him in front of my child, but I made an extra effort to talk good about him. When I would see him on Facebook, I would just try to say positive things about him. I would try to congratulate. I would try to be nice. I would train my mind not to hate him. I would train my words not to be spiteful against him. And I genuinely wanted the best for him. I really did. I wanted him to be an amazing father. My son and him had so much similarities. It was crazy. But there was always, it had come to a point in fighting, and because I didn't have the DNA test, that people were like, what if he's not? What if he's not? And they tried to sow seeds of doubt. And I had to overcome that as well. And I'm like, no, but he is. And I had to be like, he is. And I had to tell myself, and not tell myself into a delusion. But I really had to think back, what else was happening at that time? What else was I doing? And when I came to the conclusion, I'm like, that is his dad, I just made peace with it. I said, however much time they have left, it is what it is. Now, I did want medical reports because I needed to know why my son was born with muscular dystrophy. There was nothing on my side that was coming up, and I was wondering if there's history on his side. So it was normal for me to want to know his side of the history. Like, I didn't just make peace and then I'm like, well, that's it. I don't need to know nothing. There's still certain things that I wanted to know for the sake of my child. Everything I did was a sacrifice for my child. I had to put my own pride aside. I had to put my own needs and wants aside. I had to put aside any hate or hurt that I had. And so really training my mind to speak positively about him and praying for him was how I started to find forgiveness for him. And so when it had come to my son getting sick and being in the hospital, it wasn't really hard for me to reach out to him. I wasn't sure if I wanted to. I had kept communication every now and then. I would say, hey, this your son, what's up, right? And at some point along the journey, because I was so persistent in seeking legal help, the system finally worked in my favor, and it finally forced him to get a DNA test done in order for him to get his driver's license back, because his driver's license got suspended. Like, sometimes the system works. If we play it correctly, sometimes the system does work. So if it wasn't for that, to this day, I would not actually have legal proof that that's his father. He would still be walking around denying it. So one day, we finally did the DNA test, and we started talking back, and he's talking to me smooth again. He was always a smooth talker, talking about maybe being a family, all this other, because everything else he was doing wasn't working. And I entertained the idea for a bit of wanting to be a family, because that's what we're told is what it's supposed to be. And when I say told, I mean society makes you feel like the best way to be happy is to have a family with the father of your child. They make it seem like if you have a family with another person, it's incomplete. That child's going to have questions. And so being a family with the father of my child was something in the back of my head that I wanted but never thought would come true. And so as he's entertaining this idea, I'm starting to get a little bit of hope. I'm like, oh, that'd be kind of cool. I could forgive him for everything, and we could I already forgave him for everything, so we could just chop it up, and we could just move on to being a family. And he saw us at the DNA test. He's like, yeah, we should do something after. And after he saw me, again, he stopped responding to my messages. And instinctively, I realized, again, it was my weight. It was the way I looked. He hadn't seen me for a while. By then, I had put on weight. And this idea of being a family that he only wanted to have it when I looked a specific way. And again, it hurt. It cut deep that my son was being denied a family because of how I looked. And I had to tell myself over and over that I was beautiful. I had to tell myself over and over that he wasn't the one, that he wasn't the right fit for us, that it doesn't have to be the child of my father, that it could be another man who could love my child just as, not even as equally, who could love my child better at this point. But I had a lot of grieving to do around how I looked. Now the family idea that I re-entertained was shattered again. And I really just didn't know what to do or where to go. The one thing I didn't do is I didn't bring anger back up. I didn't allow the anger to creep back in. I just said, well, we'll do what we always do and just keep pushing. And so now we got the results, and he's the father. Of course. He's in shock because he done told everybody that I was a Virgin Mary. He done told everybody that he never touched me. And I said to him, I'm like, I understood why you felt that way. But I got pregnant off pre-cum. It's just how it happened. There's nothing we could say about it. There's nothing we could do about it. That's just the story. But again, moving forward, how do we not dwell in this place of now you just found out after 6 years of me fighting that you were the dad? How do we move forward? And so I tried sending his mom the DNA results. At that point, I felt so elated that I was vindicated. That all these years, they dragged my name in the dirt. And I'm like, now look who's dirty. It ain't me. And this is why they say vengeance is the Lord, because I'm like, ugh, gosh, the things I would have done. But, so fast forward, or rewind back to when I was saying my son was sick and he was in the hospital. Because I've already proven that he is the father, I'm hitting him up and I'm telling him, hey, the doctors are here asking questions. I need your help. I need to know certain things. And he thought it was crazy that my son passed, or that my son was sick. He's like, I don't understand what's happening. I don't know what's going on. And he was a very laid back father. And I really wanted to him, like, I was thinking that when we got the DNA test, I'm like, finally, he's going to be in his life. Finally, I'll be able to do stuff with him. Because what I really wanted is, being such a young mom, I wanted to be able to make decisions with him. Because a lot of decisions were being made for me by my parents or by people around me. And I really wanted to have another voice to strengthen what I wanted. So we could both say, nah, that's not what we're going to do. That's not how we're raising our child. But I didn't. And because I didn't have that voice, I felt sometimes like I was bulldozed. I felt sometimes like my voice was silent, or my voice was quiet, or just wasn't as respected. And I really missed that part. Like, I really grieved having another person to rock with me or to double down on certain issues. And so I had to stand by myself. And I had to answer these questions from the hospital and from the doctors. And they're looking at me like, girl, what you doing here by yourself? Like, where the baby daddy at? And I was just so sorry that he wasn't there. Still trying to make society happy. Like, I'm not the screw up. He's the one who walked away. I did what I could. And I encouraged him to come see his son while he was in the hospital. And he never did. In those last 6 months, he had the opportunity to be an incredible father to a child who never had a dad. I invited him to the Ferrari dealership and the things that we went on that I knew that he would like, and he didn't show up for any of it. Now, when my son passed, he didn't show up either. And I had told him he passed, and he was like upset, and he screamed and all that other stuff. But he didn't show up to the funeral. Now I understood why. Part of it was because he was afraid. He was ashamed. Fear and shame and guilt will hold anybody prisoner. And the other part was that I'm sure he felt that he was unwelcomed because he hadn't been there the whole time. And we spoke after the funeral because his mom showed up, his sister showed up. And I told him that I wanted you there. I wanted you to be a part of it. He just didn't know how. He just didn't know what to do. He just didn't know that it was possible. He didn't know that someone would care, or like that was even a thing for him. And so I wished him the best. By that time, he was a father of girls. And I said my piece. I made my peace with it. Because as long as I allowed forgiveness to be the loudest person in the room, it gave him the freedom to maybe eventually be who God called him to be. But it also gave me the freedom not to hate him, the freedom not to be bound, the freedom not to be stuck in depression, anger, hurt, or hate, the freedom of knowing I raised my child exactly as best as I could, exactly how it was supposed to be, but as best as I could. And unfortunately, he will never get those memories with my child, and that is something he has to live with. Baby mother apologies. I have 2 poems. I'm going to put them next. One is, actually both of them are open letters to him that one day I pray he'll hear. Because we don't have to be angry at the men and the people in our lives who disappoint us. We don't have to grieve their loss indefinitely. we can choose to heal from it. We can choose to move on from it. We can choose to not be bound by their lack of responsibility and what seems like their lack of care. We are women, and we carry a lot. We carry a lot of burdens, but that does not mean that we are defeated, that we are the lesser person. We carry strength. To my son's father. The love I have for my son cannot compare to the hate that sometimes I wish I had for you. Yet still, I don't hate you. Never did, never will. Willingly, I supplied you with my time. Blinded by the sweet words and intimacy. In time, I was able to see that your attraction to me was only inside the parameters you deemed comfortable. Unconditional love, superficially placed, thought about a thick chick with a cute face, too thick for anything more than a sexual taste. Laced by the poisons of rejection, I declined your erections. The direction of my decision caused us to go our separate ways. 8-month phone call, calling it a mistake, calling it like it never happened, calling me a hoe, saying that no, you ain't ready to raise no kid. You 19, left me 16, disgraced, pregnant, but blessed. The best gift of life came from a man who can't stand me. To my son's father, your failed attempts to break me have only made me stronger, but I wish you knew for a second what it's like taking care of a child with a disability. I wish you were in the office with me when the doctor said he would never walk. I wish you felt your heart stop when you heard 18 was the age you would bury your child. Seems wild. Maybe if our child had a different mother, you would have made another attempt to be the father he needed. My heart bleeded that the first time meeting my child, conceded that he was yours. Your potential to be an amazing father was strangled by your inability to grow up. I gave up fighting you when I understood your mentality had you enslaved. I wish you desired to save our child. I wish you knew him like he knew you, like he knew your name, like he knew your face, even though you never called. I never showed any trace of hurt, anger, or hate. I respected you as the donor you proved to be. You see, there's no gauge or merit for good parenting. We were both simple kids trying a team, trying to wing myself through the stereotypes and complexities of this life. Do you know how many times it came close to the end when sleeping in hospital beds became a regular trend? To my son's father, I forgive you. I forgive you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I forgive you. More than anything, I wish I could just mourn his death with you. You let me go through everything as a single parent for 8 years. Tears flow over the memories that I had, but you never got. Oh, how sad. Not even his final moments convinced you to show up to his funeral. I want you to know that I wanted you there. It would have been the final moments we shared. I wish you cared. Your silence in the matter brings this chapter to a close, and I wish you that deep, penetrating peace that only God knows. This journey has timeless lessons that release when experience shows. Forgiveness is attainable if constant love and understanding flow. Update, I know I said 2 poems, but I actually just read 1 because as I was reading the second one, I said, you know what? Let's do a baby mother apologies part 3. So y'all tune in for that one, and that will be the end of the chronicles, but thank you for listening so far. Hey, thank you so much for listening to the Lips and Language podcast. My name is Kola. I am so excited that you are here. If anything I said today resonated, then get in touch with me. I have an amazing mentorship program. It is for those who feel misunderstood, overwhelmed, going through grief. It is truly an amazing time. If you want more info, hit my website, lipsandlanguage.com. And if you want to get in touch with me, you can hit it up on the website or DM me. I have a free gift for you, and I would love to be in contact with you. Whatever you decide, just know that healing, it looks good on you. And I'm so excited that we get to do this journey together. Have a blessed day. And if nobody told you, I will. I love you. Enjoy your day, and we'll talk soon. Peace.